back to All Star Allocator, where we dive into the strategies, stories, and people shaping the future of wealth. I'm your host, Austin Jia. I'm joined by Valerie Hogan, Managing Director at Clearwater Capital Partners. Clearwater is an independent wealth management platform overseeing more than $1 billion in client assets. Valerie brings deep expertise in guiding families through the complexity of wealth management. In this conversation, she shares the art of managing family wealth across generations, how to meaningfully engage the next generation, philanthropy, and the strategies her team used to grow their client base. These are the insights you won't hear anywhere else. Let's get into it. Valerie, welcome to the show. So maybe let's start with a quick introduction about your firm and yourself for our audience.
Okay, well, our firm is Clearwater Capital Partners. So we have a few divisions, but we're an independent RIA firm in wealth management. So we have private wealth management. We have family office services, the multifamily office. And then we also have an institutional that does qualified plans and other plans for businesses, privately owned businesses. So, and Valerie Hogan. My background is law and finance, so JD, CFP, and CPA. That's the Certified Exit Planning Advisor. So I'm in the family office side and just loving what I do in wealth management for our families.
Yeah, so you work with a lot of wealthy family offices, right? And for people who are curious, like how do they make the money? What industry is most common?
Yeah, so our families have made their money in various ways. So what we have, we're working with mostly are first generation wealth creators. So they have mostly created the work through their family businesses. So we have families that are in real estate, payments, agriculture, even like luxury manufacturing type. So we have families that have created wealth in lots of different innovative ways.
How do you actually reach out to new clients and build trust with them?
Our families have come to us through other families. So it's usually one-to-one referrals where a family is happy with what we've done for them. And so they're referring to friends and other colleagues and peers, and they'll reach out and then connect with us. So that's been, I want to say, almost 100% of where our clients have come from. Maybe, if we put out some content, people might be curious and be drawn. But a lot of times it's going to be from their inner networks.
That makes sense. And right now we have adapted to a virtual environment that people connect through Zoom calls, right? How important is in-person sit down in the process? Do you usually meet the people in person?
Eventually, yes. I mean, it may start out with a referral. So initially, if we're maybe meeting a family and they're from, further away, we could do several meetings by Zoom, but eventually, we do sit down. I think that is definitely critical.
Yeah. If you don't mind me asking, do you go to them or do they come to your office?
That's a mix. I mean, many will come in to the office and fly up here. But there are definitely times where we'll go to visit them as well.
Sounds good. Yeah. So for entrepreneurs and first generation wealth builders who built their wealth primarily through an outsized exposure to one industry, right? Yeah. What stage do they transform their position from a operator to think of a family wealth protector? And is it usually have to change generations, or they can transform their role within the first generation?
I would say that a lot of times they're going to have a little bit of that foot in to what they're doing, almost indefinitely. So I would definitely say it's going to be second gen a little bit, although we see lots of second gen in the business, actively involved. So if you separate operating and investing, I would say they're always probably doing one and or the other. I'm just trying to think through our families as far as if anybody's really kind of hanging out and sitting this one out. And I can't think of any really. All have some role in their either family business, or if they've exited, they're entering new ventures. There's definitely a time where they may take some time off in between, but I think just it's woven into who they are to be value creators. And as far as investments, not active, but definitely various levels of active interest, where they're tracking and asking questions and, kind of in it. And um, yeah, so just, I mean, we will bring to them investments, but they will also, be asking us about all kinds of different ones all the time. So we have a lot of active folks that are working with us.
Interesting. And on a side question here, which is if you bring them investments, and a lot of times because they are in their primary business,
Yes.
are they more leaning towards adding more exposure or
Mm.
are they trying to diversify from that?
Yeah, I think that is the default. If they have one primary way that they have, created their wealth, is the default is to keep investing in that business or their business or some kind of derivative of that business that they're now investing or doing a new venture of. So there is definitely maybe a default to that. I wouldn't say they actively look to add on various outside in that same industry, but it's usually just this conversation about every day you go to work and you're investing in you and you're actively investing in your company. But I think we have that conversation a lot about just managing risk, managing exposure in any one industry.
For you to build, plans for families, usually you consider multiple generations, right? But
Yes.
how do you even do that? Right now, things are changing so fast with AI, with everything evolving quickly.
Right. Well, and I'm sure you've heard the saying, the more things change, the more they stay the same. But, there have been just various kind of bursts of innovation, but that's been true in the past, right? The telephone and then the TV and then the internet and then AI. And so I think we want to build in some agility, ability to look around, ability to see who's creating new. I mean, value creators are going to look at other value creators, right? That are creating useful tools. Also knowing that some of those things are going to be cutting edge, that is really something that is going to be a long-term wait in some cases for that to create value. So, we're creating plans that can allot for that. A lot for money that might be needed sooner, money that's interim, all different kinds of risks and diversifying around that, but then also planning for those bold horizons that may just take a while to produce.
Can you be more specific here? It's like,
Yeah.
okay, we're starting in 2025. You have
Mhm.
a new client,
Yeah.
and they are still operating in the primary industry, but they have a second generation that is up and coming in their early 30s, for example.
Right.
And then what do you advise them to do?
Yeah. Well, I mean, when they come to us, we're gonna look at everything. We're gonna look at all of their portfolio, their exposure to risk, their holdings, anything that they're kind of not balanced out. And we're gonna look at various ways to balance that out that we can as we can. So the families are all different about that. They have, some have a lot of private market, some actually do have plenty of public market holdings. Our first stage is always going to be just to scope what are we looking at and what is the desired plan. Are we looking at a forever plan? What kind of plan are they wanting to design? What are their goals? How many generations out would they like this to last?
Ah, well, it hopefully lasts forever.
Yes, right.
Yes.
Indefinitely.
So what are the common like pitfalls
Mhm.
or discrepancies where you think this should happen, but it
Mhm.
doesn't usually happen when you do a long-term family planning?
Yeah, that's a good question. Discrepancies. I mean, it does take a while to build out and execute a really honed plan that is going to last that long. I mean, it's carefully curated. I think one of the pitfalls that we've seen in the past, and I think this is something that is getting better, there's more awareness about it, but it's just drafting instruments that send funds and resources indefinitely into the future without too many guardrails around that.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, I just needed to get it out of my taxable estate, move it on down the line. I want this to last forever. But that can have some negative effects as well if you're not careful. So having building plans that have some level of flexibility, agility, to change when needed.
accessing to alternative investment can be a real differentiator for wealth platforms. How do you evaluate those funds and opportunities before recommending to your clients?
Well, so we do heavy due diligence on any investment that would be coming in, whether, it's existing or, whether it's coming in new, but we also access third parties to bring those to us and to our families.
Real estate is often viewed as the cornerstone for family office. And what type of real estate exactly do you actually see more in the allocation?
We see all kinds. We see commercial, we see single family, we are seeing multifamily. We really see a mix. I mean, I'm thinking of a few of our families that's the mechanism of their wealth generation. We look at that too, and um, you know, I was intrigued by your model as well, where you've got, rental and very honed and very focused and streamlined approach. I think it's great to have all aspects. All of these things can just provide even diversity within an industry.
Yeah. Well, thank you for the nice
Yeah.
comment. Let's think about the flip side. So when you are seeing things doesn't go as planned, is it usually bad investment or bad timing? Because all investment are carefully designed at the beginning, but sometimes things happen, but investment doesn't go as smooth as it was supposed to.
Mhm.
Or is family dynamics, like
Mhm.
bad relationship between two generations or within the same generation. What actually have the biggest value destruction?
Boy, that's quite a race. Definitely, I do think we have pretty sophisticated ways of diligencing now investments, but I'm just thinking historically, things like Bernie Madoff-esque. So,
Yeah.
now we have more safeguards around those kinds of things. So it's just absolutely a bad investment can send something south. However, and I would say, value creators are going to keep creating. How many times have we heard of value creators that have, had an investment or had a setback and gone back in and just, made it back, because that is who they are, value creators. Same thing. I mean, boy, family dynamics can really throw a wrench in some of these long-term plans and long-term dynasties. At the same time, if you have these value creators, they're going to kind of pick up and rebuild because that is who they are. I would say bad versus bad. I'm going to throw in a third option, which is worst, which is when you get people that are not value creators or people that don't have that mindset. When that stops, that's where we get those quotes like shirt sleeves is shirt sleeves in three generations. It's really because, whether it is that generation or whether that was just maybe taught or acquired, we don't want to assess really blame as to where it came from. But if you don't have that value creation mindset, it's very difficult to out invest horrible spending, wild spending habits, or just lack of financial prowess or following the plan. Um, yeah, I would say that one wins for worse.
Yeah. Yeah. So educating the younger generation is not part of your job.
Yeah.
What are the tools that is out there, and how do you actually engage the younger generation?
Yeah, so we do mentor next generation,
Okay.
actually, and sometimes into third and even fourth generation down. So there are various really good tools. I mean, we are part of the Family Wealth Alliance at our firm, so lots of tools there. But I think mentoring is key because people having an understanding of what they're trying to build, the importance, the power of what they can do, for family, for causes they love. I think once somebody gets a passion for that, there's going to be some level of education and involvement that's going to move them forward. Very passionate actually about that subject.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And do you notice Gen Z's approach different from their parents?
I think, some of them are maybe common that we've seen in the media, various kinds of instruments, cryptocurrencies, and NFTs for a while. I mean, all kinds. I think one thing that's different is just there's so much content that can go out there. the good, the bad, and the ugly, right? So it's like, oh, I watched a YouTube about this or this video, or I saw this on, TikTok or whatever. And so I think Gen Z is going to have to really discern more between there's information infinitely out there, but what is actually good information? How to do diligence, because there's just so much information coming at.
When meme stock was hot, right? A lot of people were jumping into it. If they come to you with that idea, what is the process?
Right. Well, without recommending or endorsing, but I think, my thought about that is, yeah, we've seen some of it create tons of wealth. Not sure of the longevity of that, but it has. At the same time, I can remember Luna to the Moona, where it was not to the Moona anymore, right? So I think with some of those where there's not like a real and maybe there is a good base case at the time, but if we are in the business of building wealth out over many generations. So not to be too stodgy, we do love great returns, and we risk where appropriate. But I think in those kinds of investments, I would advise this could go to zero. I mean, it's also like the VC concept, right? Where you may spread out a lot of high risk, and you do know that some of those will probably go to zero. You may get one that really shoots to the top, right? So that's kind of the concept of venture capital, an early stage. And so, I mean, some of these other instruments are maybe in a similar vein, not the same, but just, hey, this could go to zero. And so wouldn't want to have that as your only investment, or really concentrated, especially if you cannot afford or don't have it as your plan to say, well, that went to zero. Are you devastated now? Or are you like, well, I had all these others, so I was just experimenting.
Yeah,
That's how
fair.
I look at it.
Yeah. And how do you plan philanthropy into the whole picture? There's many layers. There's the social responsibility. There's also potentially tax savings. There's other considerations for family to give back to people who help them. How do you fit this into the general plan?
Oh, yeah. This is something else I'm very passionate about too, is philanthropy. So, yeah, giving, sharing. I mean, this is some of what's like really weaving meaning into some of this wealth building, right? Is the power of what it can do for good. And so I see a lot of, great aspects of it. Definitely tax strategy, tax savings, but for what? In order to be generous, right? And it either be, in our lives with our families or with others, because money can only ultimately go one of three places, right? We're going to consume it and use it for family. We're going to pay taxes with it, or we're going to give it away. And nobody wants to dial up the tax lever. So we're down to two, right? We're really deciding how much are we and our family and family generations going to consume, and what about the rest? There's definitely a lot of need. And I think it can be a great process of family discovering more about each other and people discovering more about themselves to really find, what are you passionate about? What would you like to go move the needle on, and that can be a great kind of intergenerational activity too, where families can really come together around that.
Do families invest or donate together, or more of it individually?
Yeah, all the above. So they can definitely, through various instruments, foundations, supporting organizations, donor advised funds, they can decide together. And so there's lots of plans as they grow bigger, they can actually get governance around that and make plans on how they're going to discern to do that. But it also can just be very simple, where they come together on one holiday and say, here's what we're going to, hey, everybody, here's what you have to work with. Come back on the next holiday and talk about where it went as a family activity. It can be that basic. So I think that's great. And it can get more simplistic the more we're involving younger and younger generations.
Yeah, makes sense. And you've written and spoken about empowering women financially, especially in the financial planning process.
Right.
What do you think is special about women? And not to say that we shouldn't, but
Right.
specifically highlighting the
Yeah.
fact that women should be involved.
Right. We got to tread carefully here, right? So,
Yeah, yeah,
um, what I would say is just we were seeing statistics about how there's this big wealth transfer and a lot of wealth will be held by women. And yet the statistics are showing that they're not as confident about stewarding and managing that. And so I see that as kind of a disaster waiting to happen, right? If you've got a lot of resources going toward people that don't feel confident, um, and just case on point, not all the time, but what do people tend to do when they're scared with money? They will put it in ultra safe things. Well, so those are sitting in maybe government held securities, banks, not bad objects, but we do need people that are out there doing deals, taking risks, investing in businesses, right? So people that are really fearful are not doing those things. So we need all of that to move forward. So when we get statistics like there was one that said only 6%, all this, and it varies by market cap, but is it 2/3 of maybe the world's wealth will be held by women by a certain time and in the US? But that statistics wavers all over the place. But then we saw one stat that was 6% of them, women feel confident about that. So that's going to be a problem, I think. And the thing is, this is happening fast. Every time I see the stat, the amount of money is higher and the amount of time is shorter. And so we really want to just empower anybody who's not feeling confident about what they're doing, at least this might not be their passion, but they can understand the basics to feel confident about what they're doing, confident about how to vet the right people coming into their space and helping them. So yeah, you can tell I'm very passionate about this, but I just think it's really important based on what's happening and what's going to happen here.
What would be the best way to do it?
My preferred method is education. I really feel that if you don't really know what your plan involves, it's really not a plan. It's not your plan. It's a plan someone made for you. Um,
Right.
there are folks and women or men that are saying, I don't want anything to do. I don't want to know about it. I don't want to do it. But even I'll probe into that just a little bit. Like most people are, maybe they're very intimidated by the jargon of the financial industry, but they do really care about what's going to happen to their family when they pass away. They do really care about what gifting they can do, how they can make the world a better place. So I think if we kind of dial back the jargon and some of the parts that are more difficult, learn people's learning styles, some at spreadsheets all day. Some people want pie chart, right? Some people want it
Yeah.
drawn out, for them. So others just want to read the data. So I think adapting to learning style is really important. And I do think that draws people in. So I think best in class is instead of kind of, drafting instruments that some of them can be undoable or very hard to undo. And so people who do eventually learn will find themselves stuck in that. So my preferred method is really having someone to understand and figuring out what's going to help them understand the best, and to be involved at whatever level of planning, even if that's the pie chart, make my investment pie chart look like this.
Yeah.
Or it could be way more detailed. So, yeah.
Right. What's one piece of advice that you would give to families who are just starting to think about legacy planning?
Yeah. I think I would think multi-generational, think long term. I mean, think all the way out. And just to also think that you are probably meant to do some things in your lifetime. So, I mean, there is a little bit of a default sometimes and historically to just push everything down to next gen. There are probably some things that for a value created that you are wired up to do in your lifetime and would be a joy to do, even with multi-generation of the family. And then, you will be moving assets down to people you don't know, have never met. They could be great people. They could be not so great people. They could have good decision making or poor decision making. So, that takes a while. I wouldn't rush into doing this kind of instrument or that kind of instrument, but really just think through. I advise families, in your own words, say what you would like to see. Like the instrument should serve that, not, be sold a bunch of instruments. But what is it, the outcome that you would like to see long term for you, your children's children, and in some cases the plans are in perpetuity. In some they're not. Some families don't want that. They have an end
Right.
time.
Right. There's something that you see for ultra wealthy families do
Yeah.
that middle class should copy.
Yeah.
Is there such a thing, or what would you see that middle class should do?
I think it's not all, not to be prescriptive about it, but I do see families talking about business, talking about value creation, talking about where does money come from, what we do earlier. I mean, I was just watching a podcast earlier this week, and it had probably a well-known billionaire, and he was with his grade school daughter, and he was talking with her about real estate depreciation, and she was able to echo back to him those comments. And I thought, no, look at how young that is, that he's talking with her about these things. And so I think it's not to shy away. And that is also a generational thing. I think a couple generations ago, it was considered, just whatever you want to call it, to be talking. We didn't talk about these things in polite company, right?
Yeah.
But I do think that families, they really need to prepare. It's not a great plan to dump resources on somebody who's not prepared for it. I don't think it really sets them up for success. So
Yes. If you are running a marathon, you should train a couple of months
Yeah.
before that, right?
Yeah.
Like, not to start running.
Yeah, that's a very close analogy to what I would say. Nobody wants to walk up to 1,000-pound barbell when they've never trained and just try to lift it.
Yeah,
It's not going to end well.
exactly.
So.
Yeah. So looking ahead, right? What excites you the most, especially where wealth is going, where family office is going in the next 5 years, 10 years?
Yeah. I really like that I would say maybe it's, wealth 3.0, 4.0, this openness to involve next gen, involve maybe family members. And I would say it could be, folks that normally maybe aren't as involved with finances. It could be spouses, it could be children, but involving them earlier, giving some agency and some autonomy and some decision making. I mean, that's really where we would learn how to ride our bike when the training wheels are off the best. So I think I see more of that, more of a from a family office industry and thought leadership coming, that we want to see heirs interacting with some assets earlier on, so that really good mentoring and training can happen. So I think that's one of the best things. That, and just thinking, rethinking. I mean, this is how we're going to move. When you were asking, how do we adapt these hugely long-term plans as things are moving along so fast, is we want to keep having these conversations about what's a best practice, what's best thinking in these areas. I love what's happening about involving others. I love what's happening about, just, making a difference with our funds.
Yeah. I have a couple of questions for lightning round. Are you ready for that?
Yeah.
Okay. So what's the biggest myth about family wealth?
I would say overall, I mean, it's just, if it's going to be lightning round, it's going to be first thought out of my head, right? But I think it's that it's going to bring happiness.
Okay.
Sounds. Yeah. I mean, it's just, right. We know it doesn't, but there's
Do you think money brings happiness?
Yeah. Yeah. I think it can facilitate things that increase short-term happiness, but I think that is a myth. And even from others that are outside of that, to be, looking at it saying, oh, if I just had, and it's just not true. I think resources, and a lot of resources, will just intensify whatever's there already.
Great. That's a very good point. I know this is not a investment recommendation, but what is the hottest asset class for generational wealth right now?
Oh, I don't know if it would be considered hottest, but the UBS Global Report on Family Offices, you will see that private markets have a pretty large percentage, over half of what family offices are invested, at least in the U.S., families in the U.S., when you break that down. So I do think private market is an area of interest right now. I don't know if I would say, hottest can be like meme coin, right? I mean, it
Yeah,
can be on fire and then not on fire. But I would say when we look at things like that, we can see what families are interested in and what they're doing.
got it. And for a rich family tradition, there are probably a lot of crazy ones. What do you find the most interesting one?
Yeah, I thought about this. They're a little bit all over the board. Some of the gatherings are crazy. You can have hundreds and hundreds of extended family members, which is kind of neat, but the logistics are, there's entire industries over putting those together. So that's intriguing. One family, they played kind of money type games, with their kids and really early on. So, I think it's all over the board.
Awesome. And what's the kind of the worst advice that you wish this industry doesn't go forward with,
Mm.
but you hear all the time?
Yeah, I would say creating really long-term plans, codifying them, um, creating instruments that just don't have good governance, good flexibility, guardrails. Somebody could think they're doing a great thing by making really stiff um, instruments, and it can have a bad outcome.
Is there a book that you think every family should read?
Boy, there's a ton, right? So it kind of depends. But if we're lightning round, I really still like, it's old school, but I like Millionaire Next Door. It is really about value creators and some of the surprising ways that some people might think they live.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and I have a book for that. Is Wise Women Managing Money
I
by Valerie
was going
Hogan.
to say, I did write one, but I'm not gonna, thank you.
Yes,
Yeah.
of course. I've read it. It's wonderful, and I think people should get it.
Thank you.
Okay, and the last question is, where can people find you if you
Yeah.
have more questions?
Can find me on LinkedIn. Yeah, I think find
LinkedIn
me
would
on
be the best place.
LinkedIn, find me on the Clearwater Capital Partners website. You can find me at Wise Women Managing Money, but it's definitely LinkedIn.
Sounds great. All right, thank you so much for spending the time with us. I really appreciate it. Thank you for tuning in. If you enjoyed the episode, please subscribe, share with your colleague, or leave us a review. And as always, nothing heard here is investment advice.